Hello students, welcome to this program. Today we will discuss an important important unit, that is impression formation. That is one of the units inside social psychology of MSc psychology first year and also UG psychology second year third semester. Today we will discuss different aspects of impression formation. That is what is impression formation and also the principles involved in impression formation, and how do you form impressions of others, and the different theories or models of impression formation, and also the psychologists associated with this the concept of impression formation. And also we will discuss the how do we create a good image of ourselves on others, that is impression management, and also what are the techniques of impression management. To discuss all these aspects of impression formation, we have with us an expert. There is Dr. Naga Seema. She is from Hyderabad Central University, Department of Psychology. Welcome to this program, madam.
Thank you, sir.
What is this impression formation, and also the principles involved in this impression formation?
To be more general, let us first understand the meaning of impression.
Yes.
So, impression is an idea, feeling, or an opinion about something or someone, especially formed without our conscious thought, or basing on a little evidence. We tend to have certain opinions about others. Therefore, this is known as impression. Now, to form impression, there is some understanding that impression formation belongs to a social cognition process, and it is a social psychological term referring to the processes by which different pieces of knowledge about a person are combined into a global or summary impressions. To be more scientific, to be more technical, Snyder in 1979 has defined it as the process of inferring psychological characteristics from behavior and other psychological characteristics, and how the perceivers organize the information and infer into a consistent, meaningful whole. Rather, this particular definition fits into a holistic approach, that is the Gestalt view.
So, in different contexts or in different places, this impression formation occurs. And there is one psychologist, he is by name Solomon Asch. He is a social psychologist. He has done extensive research on the concept of impression formation. Will you please throw light on the experiments and the research of this Asch?
Definitely, sir. There are certain classic research conducted by Solomon Asch and Asch research on central and peripheral traits. Now, when we look at a person, and immediately certain impression of his character forms itself in us as a glance. A few spoken words are sufficient to tell us about a story about a person. So, in this process, Asch has proposed a holistic theory of impression formation, in which the parts, most oftenly the personality traits, they interact and change the meaning with the context. So, Asch in 1946, he presented subjects with a list of traits representing a stimulus person and asked them to write a description and select other traits they felt would characterize the stimulus person. Now, in this particular experiment, those who saw the first group of adjectives usually form a more positive impression of others. Now, in Asch 1946 experiment, the explanation was that we form impressions using some kind of gestalt or a whole picture with piece of information influencing the other person. Here, an intelligent person and a warm person generates a positive impression. In Asch theory, an intelligent and a cold person generates a negative impression. Further, this approach is also known as configural model, as the cold and warm traits have strong effect on interpretation of the surrounding traits. They are termed as central traits because of their influence. Sometimes in one case, the warm person is known as or sometimes you can refer this warm person having a central trait called warmth. Other traits do not have the same power. Traits which appear first have impact in final impressions known as primacy effect. That means as and when we interact with people, the first impression or the first information becomes our primacy effect.
As you said, the Ash has divided the traits into two categories. There is one is central trait and also the other one is peripheral traits. And he has also developed or formulated a theory, that is the implicit personality theory. What are the key aspects of this theory?
Yes, we should also understand that before forming impressions about others, there are two ways of looking at this perspective. One is explicit, explicit in the sense we tend to form impressions through our conscious mind. Sometimes we also form impressions based on unconscious mind, which we refer to as implicit personality. So whatever we tend to form impressions of others, that reflect our own implicit beliefs more than their actual traits or perceived trait relationship. So beliefs about what traits or characteristics tend to go together. Now here is an example. Attractive people are assumed to possess positive traits such as good social skills. Now here is an example which says that all beautiful people are good. Not necessary. So therefore attractive people are perceived that they are more intelligent, they are more happy, they are more sociable, which may not be the true case.
This is one perspective. Personality perspective of Ash is one angle, and there is another approach to the concept of impression formation, that is cognitive approach.
Correct.
What are the key features of this cognitive approach, madam?
I would like to emphasize that we pay attention to information about traits and values rather than information about a competent person. So these immediate cognitive frameworks called schemas or heuristics, they play a vital role in impression formation. Say for example, here I would like to speak on a continuum model of impression formation, that is the dual processing model. So impressions range from stereotypes, category based impressions to individuated impressions. Here the dual processing model explains two ways of looking at impression formation. One is the top down approach or top down process, or the other one is bottom up process. Now we generally tend to use category based information or inferences because it is easy and quick. We form impressions through top down processing, that is we have to use certain stereotypes, certain heuristics or schemas to form impressions and judgments about others. Whereas when you are talking about bottom up approach, it is more individuated process which involves we used to observe data and very effortful processes of understanding people, so as we take more time to form an impression about others.
Another important aspect of impression formation is the factors that influence impression formation. There are different factors are there, and different sources are there. We get information from different sources. For example, the nonverbal communication or physical cues. The physical cue is one of the key determinants of impression formation. Will you please throw light on the sources or the factors that influence impression formation?
Definitely, sir. Actually, when you are talking about impression formation, I would like to say that the research has indicated that it is the nonverbal communication which is more predominant, that influences an individual's impression formation. So in this nonverbal communications, we tend to understand that the facial expressions are very prominent. Example, a high level of eye contact is usually interpreted as a sign of positive feelings, but sometimes continuous gaze like staring is often perceived as a sign of anger or hostility. So definitely nonverbal communication, especially facial expressions, do influence in terms of impression formation. Further, I would also like to add that the body language reflects our emotions through the positions. Therefore, postures, body movements definitely influences an individual's impressions. So people can express emotions through their vocal effects, paralanguages such as tone, volume, pitch and rhythm. Example, micro expressions and linguistic style can reveal deception moderately. Whether a person is angry, whether a person is happy, everything can be understood through this process called body language. And nonverbal cues can have important repercussions in professional settings, especially in the workplace, affecting the impressions and performance during the workplace, especially in the job interviews as such.
So as you said, this physical cues or physical appearance of the person plays a major role. The dress they wear and hairstyle and the way they speak, their tone of voice,
Yes.
all these things also matters when you draw information about the person. And there are different aspects and also the various factors. And then the important thing is how do you assess the impression formation? There are various ways of assessing the impression formation. What are the methods, sir?
There are quite good methods or techniques to understand the process of impression formation. One such method is free response. Here the participants are given a list of personality descriptors such as assured, talkative, cold, warmth, and then instructed to briefly sketch his or her impressions of the type of person described. So this is a useful technique of gathering detailed and concrete evidence on the nature of the impression formed. So therefore this is a free response. Another method is known as free association, where the perceiver creates a list of personality adjectives that immediately comes to their mind. Free association method, when asked to think about the type of person described by a particular set of descriptor adjectives. So whatever comes to their mind, that comes into their picture is listed. So this particular method is coming under free association. Another important method is checklist, where the presenter gives a particular list of adjectives where the participant has to choose an appropriate method of adjectives, which comes under the checklist method. Another important scientific method is Likert type rating scales, where the perceiver responds to a presentation of discrete personality characteristics. Example, a participant might be asked to answer the question, would an honest person ever search for the owner of a lost package, or in terms of a behavior. So by answering on a 5-point scale ranging from very likely to very unlikely, so this can be assessed through a Likert 5-point rating scale.
And the other important aspect of this impression formation is impression management. See, we people try to create a good image of ourselves and others. We follow consciously or unconsciously. We follow different techniques to have a better image of us and others. So will you please throw light on different techniques of impression management?
Definitely, sir. Like how impressions are formed, we should also have to manage our impressions. We should also feel like giving a sense of positive appeal to others. And impression management is also known as self-presentation, and people tend to present themselves in order to satisfy their needs and goals. So in this particular process of impression management, I would like to focus on two important technical dimensions of impression management. The first one is self-enhancement. Now when we are talking about self-enhancement, the term itself is indicating that we tend to make certain efforts to increase our appeal to others. So how do we do that? How do we increase our appeal? By physical appearances, through our style, through our dressing style, through our personal grooming, so which really makes an impact on the other person. Sometimes using branded clothing, branded items, using certain properties also create a sense of impression management. And sometimes positive self-representation or appearing highly skilled, being so capable of doing in terms of our self-efficacy, definitely influences our impression on the other person. And research suggests that impression management techniques often work, but if overused can produce negative reactions from others. So we need to be very careful in forming certain impressions towards the other person. Now coming to the other important management technique, or how to manage our impressions on the other person, is other enhancement. Sometimes not necessary that we should always try to appeal to others. Sometimes we can also make efforts to make the other person feel good. So this is something indicated as other enhancement. So here the first case is self enhancement, but in the second case is other enhancement, where we try to make certain efforts to make the target person feel good in various ways. So how to make this? So we can use a person can use flattery, or praising the person, expressing agreement with the person, doing favors to the other person, and seeking advice from the other person. All these techniques come under the broad category of other enhancement in management.
As you said, this impression management, the techniques are classified into two. One is self-enhancement, another one is other enhancement. The self-enhancement, as you rightly said, we try to impress others by telling our competencies, our qualities, and also by improving our the performance. We try to impress others. And other one is other enhancement. It is external. So one psychologist said there are the different factors. One such factor is ingratiation. Ingratiation involves three factors. One is opinion conformity. What we do is, people we usually do is, to gain the approval of others, we accept the views and opinions of others. By doing so, we get the approval and acceptance of the others. That is one thing. That is opinion conformity. Okay. And another factor of this ingratiation, the term is, they have used the term ingratiation. Another term is flattery, as you rightly said. The flattery, we praise the people and we appreciate the people. When we appreciate the people, other people will be happy. When they are happy, they will have a good impression on us. And another thing is supplication. That we use the term supplication. The supplication is when you want to gain attention of others, we try to gain sympathy from others by talking miseries of us. We take our problems, we explain our problems, we talk about our miseries. By doing so, other people will have sympathy, and we get the attention of others. And such, there are many other techniques. For example, one is association.
Yes.
One association technique is there. Association technique is very simple. When we want to project ourselves as a great person or as a influential person, we say so and so, VIP is my classmate, is my relative. For example, IAS officer, collector is there, collector is my classmate. And we also sometimes we say so and so minister is my relative. So this is association technique. We associate ourselves with VIPs. By associating ourselves with VIPs, we feel we also great people are VIPs. That is called association technique. Like that, there are different techniques. By doing so, we draw the attention of others. So we have discussed different aspects of this impression formation and impression management.
Sir, as you were mentioning that people tend to refer some significant authority, that they know somebody and they belong to a particular group. So even the significant authority figure does has some sort of an impression formation. So the role which a person is in particular position also influences the impression formation. So people tend to think of others with a role context that we should understand, and also according to their roles we also connect to their personality traits. So that is very important here. And one more important component that I would like to add is the physical cues The physical cues where I am talking about the appearance and behavior are the key determinants of our first impressions. So, how a person looks, how a person speaks, how a person smells, all these are definitely a prerequisite in forming impressions. And further, I would also like to focus on the figure and ground principle here, which explains the salience. That means people pay attention to the figure rather than the ground or the setting. So, we should always understand that apart from the physical cues, apart from the attitudes, apart from the various schemas, all these non-verbal behaviors, all these role related, even the Milgram study also explains, if you can refer, that people have a tendency to believe or follow an authority figure. So, which is also an important parameter for impression formation. So, we should always understand that these salience, roles and then physical cues does contribute to impression further, which leads to a particular set of behavior, and that particular behavior again it reflects on the impression formed.
There is another term, self-deprecation. Self-announcement is one, and another term is self-deprecation. Under that, what the people do is, instead of talking too much of us, they will be very modest in their talking, and their dress pattern will be modest and simple, and by doing so, they will create a good image of ourselves. That is one technique that people follow it, was either consciously or unconsciously. That is different. And the another thing is when you ask for a opinion, either a friend or whoever it is, ask for opinion. What is your opinion about this? So when you ask for opinion, the other person thinks, he feels that is a better candidate, and it gives us it creates a good impression on us. That is asking for the suggestions or the various things. So like this, people adopt different techniques to manage the impression or to create a better impression. Today we have discussed different aspects of impression formation, that is what are the different factors associated with this impression formation, and also the factors that influence impression formation, and the principles of underlying this impression formation, and different theories like Ash theory, and also the dual process theory, and also the cognitive approaches to impression formation. And another important that you have thrown light on this topic is impression management. What are the techniques of this impression management? We have discussed the other enhancement, that is external, and the other one is self-enhancement, that is one, and also various other simple techniques that are followed to create a better impression. Yes. Thank you, madam, for associating with this program. Thank you.
Thank you.